There's a kind of language they don't teach you in school. No words, no grammar. But if you don't learn it, you'll miss the most beautiful parts of love. It speaks through a glance, a fleeting touch, a silence filled with meaning. And most of all, in the way she remembers you even when you're not there, as if you never left. You've probably asked yourself, does she like me? Sometimes the answer isn't in what she says, but in how she looks at you, touches you, syncs with you without even trying. This video isn't a dating trick. It's an invitation to look closer, feel deeper, and show up more fully. Because sometimes all it takes is one moment of truly seeing her for her to remember you, long after you're gone. Part 1. The language of the eyes. People often say, the eyes are the windows to the soul. But with women, they're not just windows, they're an entire language. A language without words, without grammar, without rehearsal, only truth. A gaze that lingers just a bit longer than usual. A glance that quickly turns away. A moment when you look over and catch her eyes already on you, only for them to dart away like she's just been caught doing something wrong. That's no accident. That is her asking, quietly but sincerely, "Do you see me?" That question isn't spoken. It's in her eyes. And a perceptive man doesn't need her to say it aloud. I once met a woman like that in a small bookstore in Chicago. It was raining. She was standing between the shelves of novels and philosophy, holding a copy of The Unbearable Lightness of Being. I stepped into the next aisle. In that moment, her eyes met mine. Not too long, not too brief. Just long enough for me to know she saw me and wanted me to see her. I didn't say anything, neither did she. But in that fleeting instant, more was said than in any long conversation. Because the eyes don't know how to lie. When a woman is attracted, the first thing that changes isn't her smile or her voice. It's her gaze. And if you look close enough, long enough, you'll notice something else. Pupil dilation. This is where science meets emotion. When someone feels aroused, physically, psychologically, or emotionally, the pupils naturally widen to take in more. It's a physiological reaction. Automatic, uncontrollable. And it's evidence that no matter how composed she appears, no matter how her lips may smile or decline, her eyes will tell a different story. Women aren't like men in how they express emotion. While men often act directly, women live more deeply in their inner world. They send signals through their eyes, their gestures, their tiny cues, because they don't want to be too obvious. They don't want to get hurt. And sometimes they just want to be sure that you're worthy of noticing. That look, if you don't catch it, you'll lose it. Because sometimes it's all she dares to give. Not because she lacks courage, but because the world has taught women to guard themselves. They've learned to look away, to hide their eyes. But deep down, there remains a silent question. Do you see me? And if you do, truly do, then don't just look. Be present. Because the moment you return that gaze with calm, steady eyes is the moment you're saying to her without words, "Yes, I see you, and you don't have to hide anymore." In a noisy world where people communicate with emojis and brief texts, a genuine gaze has the power to silence the mind. And sometimes what makes a woman remember you isn't what you said. It's the feeling she had when your eyes met hers and the world paused for a second. Part 2. Touches without a reason. There are small, fleeting touches that seem meaningless, but to the observant they say more than any confession of love. When a woman touches your hand, not because she needs anything from you. When she stands close to you, not because there are no empty seats. And when she laughs, not because your story is the funniest she's ever heard, but because you are the one telling it. Those are touches without a reason, and they are also the clearest signs that she feels safe in your presence. I once witnessed this most clearly in a university class in Seattle. The young man named Alex, intelligent but quiet, not the type who draws attention. The girl, her name was June, smart, reserved, not the joking kind, but always smiled whenever he spoke. After class, when everyone left together, June would usually walk a few steps behind Alex. I noticed, whenever they neared the classroom door, she would gently place her hand on the back of his shirt. Not firmly, not pulling him back, just a touch. And then she would smile, softly, silently. She never said a word. Alex never reacted in any special way. But that touch, that smile, was the most delicate expression of affection. No one taught June to do that. There's no class called How to Touch Someone's Back to Show Your Feelings. But her body answered her heart. In psychology, there's a concept called touch signaling, when people use light physical contact to express closeness, agreement, or a desire to connect. For women, especially those who are emotionally sensitive and mature, a touch is never meaningless. A touch on the hand while laughing. A hand resting lightly on your arm when you say something profound. A gentle, unhurried hug when saying goodbye. All of them are signals, and each signal is a subtle test for the man. Are you aware enough to notice and mature enough not to misuse it? In today's world, where physical touch is often misunderstood and trust is often abused, when a woman chooses to touch you, she is choosing to trust you. Trusting that you will understand. Trusting that you won't belittle it. Trusting that you won't rush. And above all, trusting that you are worthy of her opening her heart. Men often miss the most beautiful things simply because they're waiting for words. But women, when they love someone, rarely begin with words. They begin with presence, with the eyes, with touches that seem so incidental. If you can feel it and respond with steadiness, calm without haste, you not only make her feel safe, you become the place where she can lay her heart down without fear of it breaking. And in that moment you'll understand one thing. The smallest touch is sometimes the greatest act of love. Not loud, not dramatic, just a moment. When you know, out of millions of people, she chose to stand a little closer, just a bit. And that little bit, if you know how to cherish it, can be enough to become everything. Part 3. Unconscious harmony. There's something fascinating that happens between two people who are truly connected. Their bodies begin to synchronize. No one plans for it. No one teaches you how to tilt your head, how to sit, where to place your hands. But somehow, if you tilt your head, she tilts hers too. If you cross your arms, a few seconds later she does the same. If you take a deep breath, soon her breathing slows down to match yours. To an outsider it might seem like mimicry, but in truth, it's a sign of unconscious harmony. In Boston, there's a small cafe in the Beacon Hill neighborhood where I often sit and watch people go by. One time, there was a young couple sitting near the window. They weren't overly affectionate, no holding hands, no hugging. But I noticed something strange. Every time the man raised his cup of coffee, the woman did the same. When he leaned his elbow on the table a few seconds later, she adjusted her posture in exactly the same way. And it didn't seem intentional. I watched them for nearly 20 minutes. They didn't realize it, but their bodies were dancing together, even without music. A duet of natural movement. And that spoke more than any conversation could. In psychology, this phenomenon is called mirroring. It occurs when someone feels a deep connection or affinity with the person in front of them. Mirroring is the unconscious way of saying, I am in sync with you. I'm on the same wavelength as you. No one can truly practice this in a natural way, because if you try to copy someone deliberately, they'll sense the inauthenticity. But when it happens on its own, it's a sign that reason has stepped aside for emotion. Women are often quick to sense energy. If she feels comfortable, safe, and drawn to you, she will relax in a way that's unguarded. And her body will start adapting to your rhythm, like two instruments tuning into the same key, even while playing different melodies. That is one of the most sacred things between two people. No need for words, no need for explanation. Just presence, and the body will do the rest. Think of the times you've talked to someone truly special. You don't remember exactly what they said, but you remember the feeling, the eyes, the closeness you couldn't explain. And if someone is sitting near you and makes you feel like you don't have to try so hard to be understood, then maybe you're mirroring each other without even realizing it. A wise man will observe this. He doesn't need to ask, "Does she like me?" Because the answer is right there, in the way her posture, her gestures, her gaze, and her rhythm begin to align with his. And when you notice this, cherish it. Don't rush to take advantage. Because harmony is not an opportunity, it's a gift. Unconscious harmony is the deepest whisper one soul can offer another. I don't need to try to understand you, because I already feel you. And if you're sensitive enough to respond, you won't just touch her hand, you'll touch the part of her soul she rarely opens to anyone. Part 4. When she misses you in your absence. There is a kind of affection that is not expressed through words, nor loudly through actions. It exists quietly, in the empty spaces you leave behind. Not when you're there, but when you're not. When you don't text her all day, she tells a story that somehow involves you, even just in passing. When a song you once loved plays at a cafe, she smiles to herself. When someone accidentally mentions a place you once visited, her gaze softens for a beat. You're not present, but she still lives with your presence. In a small town near Denver, I once rented an Airbnb from a woman named Eliza, a literature teacher, unmarried. We talked in the kitchen at night, drinking wine and discussing favorite books. When I asked if she had ever loved someone, she didn't answer directly. She simply said, "I once knew a man. He loved Rilke's poetry, always carried letters to a young poet in his coat pocket. Now every time I go to a bookstore and see that book, I find myself standing there, just looking at it. I haven't seen him in a long time, but every time I see that book, I remember the way he read each line like it was a prayer." She never used the word love. She didn't need to, because memory had already spoken it for her. Missing someone in silence is a deep form of connection. It doesn't come from fleeting desire. It doesn't come from mere loneliness. It comes from the fact that person left behind something that touched your soul. When a woman thinks of you, not because you're handsome, talented, or charming, but because you made her feel that a deep part of herself was seen, that is worth more than any love confession. Because confessions can be impulsive, but missing someone in their absence is emotional investment quietly nurtured over time. When she misses you, she won't always text. She won't rush to find a reason to call. But in the small things, a dish you once mentioned, a scent that brings something back, a film scene that echoes a past conversation, you're still present. That's when you don't just live in her memory, but in her emotional space. A mature man does not measure affection by the number of messages received each day. He pays attention to the small details, the way she mentions you without using your name, the way she holds on to something you once gave, whether it's a pen, a hat, or a sentence, the way her eyes dim for a moment when you say, "I'm leaving soon." These signs are not easy to catch, but if you see them, know this: she is keeping you in a corner of memory she rarely opens to anyone. And that is a kind of love that needs no words. A kind of presence that endures in the mind, like a song you no longer play, but every time the melody comes on, you still know the lyrics. When you live deep enough in someone that they remember you in your absence, do not take that lightly. That is a love that survives distance, time, and silence, because love is not holding each other every night. It is, I see you even when you're not here. Conclusion. Presence without being present. True attraction does not lie in the fact that you're there, but in whether you remain when you've gone. Women don't always speak clearly, but they always speak truth, in a language only a perceptive man can hear. Learn to observe instead of demanding. Be patient instead of pushing, because real attraction is never loud. It is subtle, quiet, and deeper than anything you've ever imagined.